What's up? It's Sofia Gutierrez with Arena Football One, and today I'm joined by none other than Billings Outlaw kicker, Dean Faithfull. Dean, how are you doing?
I'm splendid, thank you. Thank you for having me on.
Yes,
Appreciate
of
it. Yeah,
course.
life's good. Life's good.
Yeah. Well, I'll be in Billings this weekend, so I'm excited to see you in action this Sunday.
Yeah, we must say hello then. Yeah, we must say
Yes.
hello. Looking forward to Sunday. Obviously, every these games are really important for us, so I'm just focused in for Sunday. Yeah, I'm ready.
hmm Now, before joining the Arena Football League, you did some time with the CFL. How was it transition coming to Arena Football?
It's different, yeah, for sure. I'd watched some arena ball before, um, and I didn't know how different it would be. I kind of had to, when I got the call to come to Billings, I didn't have any time to train or practice. It was just hop on a plane and come across. And then actually that week, didn't have any time to really practice on the post because we didn't have access to that. And so, yeah, my first time hitting against the net or between the skinny posts was on game day against Albany. So it was a big transition, but nothing too difficult. For me, I got into kicking because I had a big leg. I could hit the ball far, and that's what helped me get to the CFL. It helped me have a scholarship in college, and so my transition was not hitting it too high on kickoffs because I was easily hitting the roof or hitting
Mhm,
the scoreboard every time. So for me, I
mhm.
had to figure out, right, I need to drive the ball now, to be effective. So for me, it was kind of reining in that power and figuring out how to make it accurate and do a job for Billings.
Okay. Were you one of the kick? Because they didn't tell me which kicker, but they said a kicker had kicked the scoreboard. That's why a couple games ago it didn't work.
I've hit it in Billings.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, yeah, I've hit it maybe twice now. Definitely my first home game
Uh-huh.
in Billings. I hit it on a kickoff. I don't think I broke it, but
Yeah.
that's a cool story if I did. But yeah, it's one of those where you think you can miss it easily, but yeah, just catch it a bit high and you're hitting the bottom of the speaker. So I've had to adjust and go either side to make sure we don't hit that on kickoffs because obviously that's not great for us when they get it at the 20.
Mhm.
So I'm avoiding hitting that speaker. I hate that speaker. So can we get rid of it? Can we ask the league to take it down?
Well, so we talked about your transition from the CFL to AF1.
Mhm.
Now, maybe an even bigger transition. You grew up playing soccer. When did
Yes,
you know that you wanted to give American football a try?
but honestly, by accident. I'd never really thought about it, and I wish I'd found it 15 years ago. The honest truth, I wish I'd obviously had very lucky to play soccer and have a career in that way. And coming from England, that's all we wanted to do. But so I'd never thought about American football. But my strength in soccer was always, I could kick the ball far and straight, and so that really helped me become a kicker. But I was actually in Florida because I went to school in Florida. I had a soccer scholarship at Florida Tech, and I
Mhm.
went back to visit my old soccer coach. And while we were sat having coffee, he got a text from a coach who was looking for a kicker. And so while he was there, he just said, "Dean, do you want to be a kicker?" And the funny thing was at the time, I'm in my 30s at this point. I'm 33. And so I kind of say to him, well, like, what are you talking about? And he said, no, you'd be a good kicker. Like you've kept yourself fit. Like you'd be good, and maybe you can go do your master's degree.
Mhm.
Anyway, long story short, the coach said, can you come for a tryout tomorrow? So I cancelled my flight to London. I had a flight to London, Orlando to London. I
Mhm.
cancelled it and was like, let's see if I can give this kicking thing a go.
Mhm.
Which is kind of me, that's kind of my personality. I'm like, I'm good. I'm always willing to give something a go. And so, yeah, I had a tryout the next day. Never kicked American football before, but did really well. Hit some kickoffs, hit some field goals, My technique has probably changed a lot since then, but the coach he loved what he saw and said, "We'll teach you the rest." Then he offered me a scholarship to come back, do my master's degree, and that's how I ended up back in college playing football. So it was all kind of by accident. That was 2020, so that was COVID.
Mhm.
COVID kind of came along the week after I got back from Florida, and I couldn't fly back to Florida. So I bought 3 footballs on Amazon, and I just went out and kicked by myself every day. Like,
Mhm.
it was during COVID when we were locked down. So I just grabbed me and my footballs. We went out and we just kicked. And so I learned how to kick and how to do field goals and how to kick off with an American football by myself until I got the opportunity to fly back to America, which was later that July, ready for preseason in August. So
Mhm.
that's
Well, I
how it
hope
came about.
yeah, well, I hope when you were practicing, you had one of those, um, nets, because if you were kicking and no one was there, that's a lot of chasing too. But I
There was
admire
no net.
the
It was on a rugby field in the middle of the south of England, and every time I kicked, I had to run and go get my ball and bring it back, kick again. And I would just film. I had a tripod. I would film myself kicking, watch it back, and every day just tried to get better and better. So, yeah, my parents and family thought I was a bit nuts because they're like, "Well, Dean's just going out." After work, I'd go straight out to the field and kick footballs, and they were like, for what? They didn't really see the
Mhm.
vision I saw or understood it because they've not spent time around American football. So they thought it was crazy, but I had a dream, I had a vision in my head, and I kind of went for it at that point.
Hey, maybe
Yeah,
that also helped you stay fit, you know?
it did.
Kicking, running after it.
Yeah, it did. It did. Well, it meant I spent, instead of like an hour, I had 3 hours on the field because you
Mhm.
spent 2 hours collecting the 3 footballs I had, in the rain most of the time because it's England.
Mhm.
So yeah, that was an interesting time.
Okay, and, so obviously kicking a football compared to a soccer ball is way different. What are some of the adjustments, small tweaks that you had to do to get that technique down?
Well, a soccer ball is somewhat designed to be kicked. So, like a
Mhm.
spherical, like you can manipulate the ball, hit it on different parts of a soccer ball, and it will generally work. Has a big surface area. American football is, believe it or not, is not designed to be kicked. Right? It's designed to be thrown, which is why the quarterbacks love to throw their spirals. It's not really designed to be kicked very well. So you have a very small sweet spot to hit a good ball, and if you get it wrong, if you hit it slightly left, slightly right, it most of the time will mean a bad kick. So like you have to learn how to hit that same kick over and over and over again. So there's a lot less margin for error. So like that transition was big because you have to figure out, okay, my foot position has to be this every time. If it
Mhm.
changes and I pick my toe up or I turn my ankle a certain way, it's going to change how that ball leaves my foot. And so, yeah, you have to learn to just be really consistent and learn how to kick the ball the same every time. Most of the time, right? Okay,
Mhm.
there's times you might adjust, but most of the time, across the leagues, we're kicking it the same and not changing that technique. So that was the transition, I think, was the biggest.
Mhm. Now, you talk about having to kick the ball the same way. Do you have any pre-kick routines that you have to do, like superstitions, like in comparing it to basketball, when people are at the free throw line, some guys they have to, kind of move the ball back and forth, dribble twice, 3 times. Like they have a routine that they like to do before throwing the ball. Do you have anything that you have to do before kicking the ball?
I used to have more than I do now, and I think that's come with experience and maturity. And the reason why, and it wouldn't be much. Like I'd want to kick into the net once, which I don't really have access to in arena football. But when when I was in the CFL, we have a net on the side of the field. I'd want to get one kick into the net, and I was
Mm.
good. Before I kick now, I pretty much only have a routine of, I know my steps, they don't change. You know, I
Hmm.
do the same amount of steps back and across, and then I'll just take a deep breath. And that breath is kind of my reset or my trigger to go, you're ready, right? It's just a deep breath. And the reason for that is I thought about having lots of routines and superstitions, but I think as a kicker, it's almost better. I wanted to have that mindset of no matter what happens, if I get injured or if I get distracted, if I'm
Hmm.
speaking to coach and all of a sudden it's field goal, like, and I have to run on the field and I haven't done my routine, I don't want to be bothered by that. So
Hmm.
I've took the mindset now of, you put me in any situation, I'll kick the ball. You call me up at 10 o'clock at night and say, Dean, try out now, come down and kick. I'm ready. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
There's nothing that throws me off my kick, and that's taken time um, to develop. But yeah, no real kind of routines or superstitions anymore, because I'm confident that, you know, no matter what situation, I'm gonna perform. So that's my mindset now, really.
Okay. We do have Latrell Jackson asking, what about lucky socks?
Well, I wouldn't say lucky socks. I wear white socks, and I have about 50 pairs of them. So I have these pristine white socks that I like to wear every game. But
Hmm.
there's not one particular pair. I just know I love white boots or white
Hmm.
cleats and white socks. You know, they're kind of my things that I don't like to wear different color boots. I love white boots, white socks.
Hmm. Okay. I might have to do a sock check because I try to dress it up and, be a little spontaneous with my socks. So I'll try to pull out some good ones for this weekend and show you, see if I get the stamp of approval from you, Dean.
Okay. So you just wear like different, like funky socks every time? Or
Yeah,
you're not
especially if I have to dress up fancy, I'm like, all right, let me make it fun with the socks that I wear. And it's usually about nature or there's some chickens on them or some horses. But I'll try to pick some good ones out for Montana.
all right, perfect. Perfect.
Yeah. Now I see you wearing your game day kicking shirt. I
Yeah.
know this is where you teach youth how to kick. Tell me how that all started.
So that was when, I mean, if we go way back, when I left school, I wanted to teach. Well, I wanted to be a teacher. Soccer took me on a different path, and that never kind of happened. But so I've always wanted to teach slash coach. And when I graduated from Colorado State Pueblo with my master's degree, I thought, so I had an MBA, master's in business, and I thought it'd be really cool if I can, one, put that into practice, and two, do something that I love doing, create something that's mine. And so game day kicking started because I'd been around a few kicking companies, kicking coaches, and there's some really great ones out there. And to be honest, there's some really not so great. I'm not going to say anything terrible, but they're not so great. So for me, I was like, I could be one of those coaches that really provides some value to young athletes, because I've
Mhm,
been through it, and from the bottom too. I've learned kicking from the smallest details from the bottom and up, and had to do it, you know, in the last few years. Whereas, you know, I've not grown up playing the game. I've had to learn all the details. So I thought, how can I help kids? So game day kicking really started because of that. And I was sat on a mountain in Colorado Springs thinking about ideas, and, you know, Faithfull kicking came through the brain, and I was like, you know what? No, I don't want to put my name on something. Plus, Faithfull spelt my name spelt incorrectly. It's two L's, whereas the actual spelling is one L. And I was like, people are going to spell that wrong. And just
mhm,
game day come to my brain, like, when is the important time to perform? Game day. So game day kicking, I thought that just worked. And so yeah, I started that in Colorado when I
mhm,
graduated, and just started coaching, and just got more and more clients, and started working with the local high schoolers, middle school kids, and yeah, it just grew from there really. And since then I've ended up coaching in Canada when I was there, you know, with the Elks in Canada. And then when I go home in the off season, I was really keen to do some work in Europe because the game of American football is growing in Europe.
Mhm.
Every year it's getting bigger. The NFL are growing over there. The European league's growing. So I get more people from Europe contact me than I do American kids. And I think that's because one, I am European, and so people can relate to my story, and they say, "Well, Dean done it. How can I do it?" So I can
Mhm.
help them on their pathway. And so yeah, I do a camp in Paris every year, partnered with the Paris Musketeers, who play in the European League there. Yeah, so game days, I do online coaching. So I'm really kind of trying to help everyone. And for me, it's like I'm busy. I'm busy. When I was in the CFL, I was busy. I'm busy now with the Outlaws. But my spare time, how can I help people? And I'm aware that I'm not 20 years old, so my time's coming to an end at some point. So how can I keep being involved in the game? How can I pass on my knowledge and help people achieve their dreams? Because technically I've as far as American football goes, I've achieved some of my dreams, and so
Mhm.
how can I help other people do that is my next thing.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Now, so your focus for game day kicking is football related.
Yes.
Have you ever seen a young kid play soccer and say, "Hey, have you ever thought about maybe playing football?" Just like your Florida coach did to you?
Yeah, a few, and most of the young athletes I train do have a soccer background, and it's funny,
Mhm.
like it's just an easy transition. It's such a natural transition. Most of the professionals that play now in all the leagues, NFL, CFL, arena, like most of the kickers I speak to have a soccer background, and they
Mhm.
transition. So it's, you don't have to be a soccer player to be a kicker, but it definitely helps, those natural. And so I have a couple of younger kids, middle schoolers that are going on to high school now that have transitioned to soccer, and football is now their full-time love. And they might play another position, and I encourage that. I say, yeah, you want to play wide receiver, or if you want to learn, to be a quarterback, go for it. But they have this extra skill of being a kicker, which is going to really help them down the road, because coaches love that. If you can, because it's hard to find good kickers, and often
Mhm.
they get into it late, like me. And that's why I say I wish I'd found it 15, even 20 years ago. Who knows where I'd have ended up playing and how long for. Um, so I'm helping these kids start early so they can get the best opportunity to get scholarships or play professionally. And it starts at when you're young. It starts when you're 10 years old and up. So,
Mhm.
yeah.
Well, these kids are definitely learning from you, but I was a nanny, and I always say that kids are the biggest teachers. So, what have you learned from teaching kids?
I say this a lot, uh, to people that speak to me about game day or speak to me about life. It's like I'm so grateful for the kids in my life, whether it be, I've got nephews, the kids I work with, they remind me how to how to live and how to enjoy football. Because as a professional, you can get caught up in the seriousness of the game, and you need that, right? I train seriously. I look after my body. I'm dedicated to whatever team I'm on. You have to have that side, but also you have to realize, like, you have to remember and remind yourself it's a game. Enjoy it. At some point, it's going to be done. At some point, you might have to work in an office. So for now, I get to kick a football, and I get to bring joy to fans and get to make friends with my teammates. So I think the kids remind you to, and it sounds a bit cheesy, I get that, but it's true. They remind you how to be, how to live,
Mhm.
because they don't have that. Especially the younger ones. As you get into high school, the kids they're looking for scholarships, they're looking for opportunities, but the young kids, they just love kicking a football, and the joy they get from, they can't make a 20-yarder, but after 2 months of training, they're making that consistent. Now they're at 30 yards, 40 yards. The joy they get from that is a reminder of what you should try and take from your own game. So I try, and I do try and remind myself, good or bad, I get to kick a football for a living, smile and enjoy it. So that's the kids teach you that for sure. Yeah.
I love that. That's awesome. Well, thank you for all that you do outside of the field, because I think teaching kids and being there for kids, not only as a coach, but being there as a mentor for them, is one of the best things you could do, because they are the next generation.
They are. No, I agree. I think you can take it for granted yourself, like the impact you can have on these kids. And, it's, you're in their life a lot, and, they might go on to big things, and they might remember the coach. They might remember Coach Dean, and that's what's important. And I always say, like, you can always contact me. Even if we stop training, they stop using me. Like, always reach out. I'm always there for advice. And like, yeah, that is. I think that's special. And again, it goes back to that the teaching stuff I wanted to do. I think it stems from. I remember when I went to school. I remember the teachers that took time to speak to me, took time, because I'll be honest, I was a pain at school. I was the class clown. But I was good. Like, academically, I made it work, but I was the clown, and I wanted to mess around. And so I remember those teachers that took time to understand me, but I also remember those teachers that took no time for me, that just, disregarded me. And so I never wanted to be that kind of teacher or coach. So I'm fully aware that I have an impact on these kids, however small. Right. So.
Yeah, that's awesome, because I know we all have that one teacher that we're like, oh, she did this, she was amazing. And we also have those teachers you're like, oh, like I still remember one of my elementary school teachers, like she was a pain. And it turns out she actually goes to our church now. And I'm like, oh, but that's besides the point.
Yeah, no, you remember that, right? You remember how people treated you. You remember how they made you feel in the moment. So, yeah, it's important.
Definitely. Well, Dean, I appreciate you taking the time to chat with me. I'm excited to join you in Billings this weekend, and excited to see what's left of this season.
I know. Yeah, thanks for chatting with me. I appreciate it. And yeah, focus on Sunday now, and hopefully we can, turn our season around and, and do some good things, because we've got a good team at Billings. I love the boys. I love it there. So I'm trying to do my best to just help them. We want to make the playoffs. That's our goal. So, yep. See you Sunday. Bring some luck for us. All right.
I will. Best of luck.
All right. Thank you.